Hello and welcome, history fans, to History Play-by-Play. Today we look at how Washington becomes a hero and how the French defend Fort Duquesne.
In all alone. Dangle, shot. He scores!
So we just covered how George Washington went to Fort Duquesne to deliver a message for the British saying that you need to get out, France. This is British land because we made a deal with American Indians. The French, predictably, say no. Not gonna take that. And so now the British are trapped in a war because George Washington signed a surrender that included a murder confession for a French diplomat. It's a bad blunder in George Washington's career. But Fort Duquesne is still there, and the British still want it. And so General Edward Braddock is tasked with taking this march from Alexandria to Fort Duquesne to have this fight to take the French out of the place. George Washington, looking to redeem himself, is named as one of General Braddock's aides. Of the 2,400 men going, Braddock would be in charge, and they make this march. It's a long, arduous trek. They carve their way through the forest because the paths are obviously not enough for a huge army, especially one with about 1,000 men attached to taking cannons and wagon train of supplies up to what is now Pittsburgh. That's a 4-hour drive today. It's an awfully long walk. So along this way, carving out Braddock Road, they march their way all the way to about 50-ish miles away from Fort Duquesne, upon which there is a trap. They don't know that they're marching into this clearing of a path, and around them are American Indians and French soldiers waiting to get as much of the British army into that space as possible before opening fire from 3 sides. And that's exactly what happens. It is an ambush that traps about 1,500 men on the advance group right into that ambush. And so in this quick attack, General Braddock is shot and killed. And while the chain of command goes to a number of other people, we're talking about a time where there's been a lot of peace, at least on the American continent, and the British officers are not trained in combat. They didn't gain their position because of combat advancement. They did it because they were there long enough, patronage, yada yada. So everyone under General Braddock, as far as the chain of command, panics and is not able to carry on and organize. George Washington steps up. Even though that's a complete breach of the chain of command, he's merely an aide to General Braddock. He steps up and starts to organize a retreat. He's the one who tends to General Braddock and tells everyone, how do we get out of this situation? Which must have been certainly harrowing. It said that in this, that there are a number of bullets that go directly through George Washington's cloak, and he ends up coming out completely unscathed. He becomes known as the hero of the Monongahela for this battle. On the way out, knowing they cannot carry General Braddock the whole way out, they have a burial for General Braddock once they're out of the immediate fighting, as the retreat is ongoing. So they bury him. They want to make sure that General Braddock's corpse will not be defaced by any Native Americans. All the rumors of scalping and war trophies and whatnot. Look, I'm sure there's a lot of racism involved, but this is what the English believed was going to happen to their general if they gave a traditional burial and a tombstone marker kind of thing. So they bury General Braddock directly in the road and march the rest of the army over General Braddock's grave to hide it from anyone who might want to dig him up as a war trophy. It's one of those just odd facts, but George Washington ends up getting well known for everything that happened in this. As they return, Washington would look, it's not the heroism he wanted. Yes, he has some kind of well-known renown because he was hero of Monongahela, but in reality, he knows that his only heroism, his only notoriety is because he's lost 2 battles, Fort Necessity and now at the Monongahela. He's not pleased. This is not the glory he wanted. And so while things weren't going terribly, he decides he'll retire to Mount Vernon and get involved with some local politics. And well, you can all imagine how that ends up. But Fort Duquesne is not yet taken, so what do the British do? The British assign General John Forbes to take Fort Duquesne. His plan is to not mess around. None of this small groups, none of this traipsing through the woods. John Forbes is someone who is direct and to the point. 8,000 men, and they are going to cut a road from Philadelphia all the way to Fort Duquesne, what is now modern Pittsburgh. They hack and slash and build the road as they go. They will not be ambushed because they're taking things down along the way. And fun fact, this road actually becomes the Pennsylvania Turnpike that I'm sure many of you have traveled today. World's oldest highway. Well, that's what they say. Anyways, so when they cut their way across, the French see this army of 8,000. Fort Duquesne is manned by 500 French and 300 American Indians. They're outnumbered 10-1, and they know they're outnumbered 10-1. They can see that it's not going to end well. So, at the risk of traipsing into stereotypes, they do the most French thing you can think of. They burn the fort and run. They decide to deny Fort Duquesne to their enemies, and so they completely destroy the fort as much as they can. The Forks of the Ohio are won without another shot being fired. So the British will take the area, and they will begin building a new fort. A fort that they name after a member of Parliament who has been very supportive to the American colonies, William Pitt. And so they form the fort of Fort Pitt, and the small town that begins to spring up around it for people supporting the fort, tradesmen, and so on, becomes known as Pittsburgh. Just like how Edinburgh, Scotland is spelled, it's the same thing, B-U-R-G-H, Pittsburgh. And over time, that evolves into Pittsburgh. And that's how the city is founded. That's how it all really begins, with the British overtaking the French at the Forks of the Ohio and finally winning the area in this, one of the more significant legs of the French and Indian War. And that is all I got for you. That's the end of the episode. What you just saw is this teacher's interpretation of events. If you use this for a class, let me know how that went in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can figure out how today's jersey matches the content, let me know in the comments. That's extra credit. I'm John Baranowski, and thanks for watching.